Young and the Restless spoilers Thursday, October 10th. Sharon sits in the treatment room, her mind seemingly gripped by a mess of insecurities and regrets. Every time she visits Alan, her therapist, she feels an invisible pressure pushing her to free herself from the terrible secrets she has kept. The conversations with Alan become increasingly profound, tapping into the dark sides of Sharon's mind, but at the same time pushing her closer to the brink of collapse. Alan, a gentleman and calm man, always knows how to listen to Sharon. But this time, he is not just a listener, but also the one who is uncovering her worst secret. In a moment of weakness, Sharon is forced to confess the things she has done, the things she never wanted to say. That is the moment Alan, or the person Sharon thinks is Alan, learns the horrifying truth. Sharon doesn't expect that this confession will lead to unforeseen events. She doesn't know that Alan is not quite who she thinks he is. As she begins to reveal everything, Alan is also hiding a secret of his own, a secret that even Sharon herself cannot fathom. Maybe he is not really Alan. The story really begins when Alan returns to town after a long absence. But there is something very strange about him. Those who knew Alan before notice that there are small details in his behavior that don't make sense. Especially when Alan can't remember familiar things about the Abbott mansion, where he lived for many years. This raises suspicions, and a theory begins to circulate: is Alan really Alan? Those close to Alan, especially Tracy, begin to recall events from the past, when Alan's twin brother Martin was presumed dead after falling from a balcony. Martin's death is confirmed, but a simple change in clothing could explain why Martin survived. This leads people to question whether Alan is Martin impersonating his brother. With Alan seemingly not recognizing familiar details upon returning, those around him begin to suspect that Alan may actually be Martin, the pervert who disappeared after the fateful fall. Sharon first meets Alan when she is introduced by Tracy. Tracy, a kind and warm-hearted woman, thinks that Alan can help Sharon overcome the psychological difficulties she is facing. Alan is impressed with Sharon when she talks about her education and background in psychological counseling. In order to take advantage of Sharon's abilities, Alan asks her to help him with the psychology research he is doing. He is writing a book and needs an expert like Sharon to give him feedback. Sharon initially refused, claiming that she was busy with her new company. But pressure from Alan, combined with the allure of the research topic, convinced her to agree. Little did Sharon know that this decision would take her on a dark and dangerous journey, not only psychologically but also with her own life. During the treatment, Alan began to notice worrying signs from Sharon. She kept mentioning a strange name, Cameron Kirsten, and began to allude to actions she had taken under Cameron's direction. Alan could see that Sharon was on the verge of a psychological breakdown, but instead of trying to help her, he was intrigued. If Martin was really impersonating Alan, then this was the perfect opportunity for him to carry out his plan. Martin had planned everything in advance. He wanted to test his ability to fool a therapist and see if he could manipulate Sharon. Sharon, who is in the throes of mental instability, becomes an easy target for Martin. He begins to create a series of situations to make Sharon sink deeper into guilt and confusion. Sharon gradually becomes Martin's puppet. She does not realize that Alan is not who she thinks he is. Martin subtly takes advantage of her emotional weakness, leading her to believe that everything she has done is justified. He convinces her that listening to Cameron was the right choice and that her actions, including Heather's death, are the logical consequences of what she has been through. Sharon, confused, begins to trust Alan more than ever. Martin has created a strange bond with her, a complicated relationship in which Sharon becomes an accomplice to his evil plans. She feels that Alan is protecting her, keeping her secret safe, and continues to encourage her to pursue the dark path she has embarked on. The atmosphere in Genoa City begins to become heavy and suspicious. While some people only sense the underlying tension in relationships, others like Chance Chancellor are more observant. He senses that something is not right, especially when the Heather Stevens case suddenly resurfaces after months in the dark. Sharon's presence in the strange circumstances surrounding the case complicates things even further. Daniel, while trying to retrieve his co-worker's phone from the Genoa City Athletic Hotel, bumps into Chance. They only intend to say a quick hello, but Chance senses an uneasy atmosphere surrounding Daniel, as if there is something Daniel doesn't know or is trying to hide. Daniel, worried about his co-worker's missing phone and the uncertainty of the current situation, tries to keep his cool. "No, nothing, I'm just trying to get a co-worker's phone back." It shouldn't be anything serious, Daniel replied, but his eyes couldn't hide the unease. Sharon had been playing a risky game. She had recently secretly planted evidence of Heather Stevens' murder in her apartment and even pretended to be a stranger who found Heather's phone. Sharon knew that if this was exposed, it would be over not only for her but for many others. But she couldn't let herself be caught so easily. She decided to continue playing the innocent, who simply accidentally found this important evidence. Sharon's mentality had become unstable after a series of devastating events in her life. She no longer believed that she could get away with her crimes so easily, but she still believed that she could manipulate everything to protect herself. Every step she took was carefully calculated, but Sharon didn't expect that Chance had begun to suspect. Chance's warning to Daniel, as an experienced cop, had begun to see some suspicious things since Heather's case had been thrust back into the spotlight. When he heard about the missing phone and learned that Sharon had unexpectedly appeared in connection with the evidence, he decided he had to warn Daniel. "Daniel," Chance said, his voice low but clear. "I know you're upset about Heather's case, but there are things you need to be careful about. I don't want to say anything to make you more nervous, but I've been feeling that something about Sharon and her involvement in Heather's murder isn't right." Chance shook his head slightly, not wanting to send Daniel into a panic right away. "I'm not saying she's definitely involved, but the recent evidence and the circumstances surrounding Sharon have made me think about that possibility. What I want you to do is be careful, don't act impulsively, and make sure you don't let your emotions get the best of you." Daniel frowned, his mind racing with questions. Was Sharon really involved in Heather's case, or was it just a coincidence? His mind couldn't stop thinking about the possibility, but he knew that if he didn't calm down, things could get worse. While Daniel was trying to stay calm, another problem was brewing. Nick Newman, who had always had troubled relationships, was caught between two women who were once his wives, Sharon and Phyllis. The tension between the two women had been there for a long time, but this time, with Heather's case at the center, things seemed to be spiraling out of control. Phyllis, nicknamed Red, knew about Heather's death and couldn't keep her peace. She felt uneasy knowing that Sharon might be hiding a terrible secret. She began to suspect that Sharon was not only involved in the case, but that she might also be trying to manipulate Nick. Nick, who has always tried to mediate between Sharon and Phyllis, sees that the confrontation between the two women is getting more and more tense. Both Sharon and Phyllis have their own reasons for being at odds with each other, but this time, he feels like the situation could explode at any moment. Nick feels pressured, but he also knows that if he makes a mistake, he could lose both women forever. "Phyllis, I understand your concerns, but we have to handle this calmly. If Sharon was really involved, the truth will come out soon." Was Sharon really involved in Heather's death? And if so, what drove her to become a criminal? Nick, Phyllis, and Daniel will face difficult decisions as the truth comes out, and their relationships will never be the same. Fans of The Young and the Restless will have to stay tuned to find out what happens next. But surely, in the world of intrigue and secrecy in Genoa City, nothing is predictable. Subscribe to Yonder for the latest news on our channel.